Welcome to the deep dive. So today we've got this really fascinating stack of source material. We're looking at ancient practices, things like acupuncture and meditation.
Yeah.
And we're putting them right up against modern science. So SSRIs, EMDR therapy.
Right.
And if you just glance at them, they look like they're from totally different planets.
Oh, absolutely. One seems spiritual, the other is, pharmaceutical. It feels like ancient wisdom versus modern neurology.
Exactly.
But the fundamental thing we found, the discovery we pulled from all these sources, is that they're all pointed at the exact same biological target.
The same target.
The same target, they share an identical mechanism, and they're all looking for the same outcome in a person.
Okay, let's unpack this then. Our mission for this deep dive is to connect those dots. We want to show that whether you're using silence or stillness or, the most advanced science, the mechanism underneath isn't mystical. It's not magic.
Yeah.
It's just biology.
Yeah.
And that biology is all about regulating your central nervous system, the CNS.
That's exactly it. The real target across thousands of years is the central nervous system. We found these observations going back, to 2,500 years.
Wow.
From these early spiritual systems where the core insight was basically a person just can't see clearly when the system is hot.
That's a great way to put it. When the system is hot.
It is. And all the instructions were about how to cool the system, using simple things like observation, stillness, and your breath.
Which is such a simple, but an elegant diagnosis of what we all feel when we're completely overwhelmed.
Exactly.
And now in the sources we have, that ancient idea is basically confirmed with modern terms. We call it neuroception now.
Right, that non-conscious detection of threat.
And it's the foundation for therapies like somatic experiencing. It's the same truth, just with a new, a neuroscience label.
Absolutely. The wisdom traditions were just observing the result of a regulated nervous system.
Right.
Long before we had the tools, to map the vagus nerve or do an fMRI scan and actually watch the brain activity shift.
Speaking of mapping, let's get into the toolkit the sources lay out, because the sheer number of practices that share this one mechanism is, it's frankly pretty astonishing.
It is.
We can kind of categorize them. So on the eastern side, we have practices that seem specifically designed to target the nervous system directly.
Yeah, that toolkit includes things like acupuncture, which is, putting needles in strategic points to basically
poke the nervous system.
Poke the nervous system, and get a response. Then you have Tai Chi, which uses that extreme slowness to calm the survival charge. Then there's yoga, using long stretches to get at the fascia and release what some of these sources call somatic memory. And of course, meditation, which settles the breath to widen awareness.
And then you look west, and the goal is, it's functionally identical, just different tools.
Complete.
We're talking SSRIs, which medicate the nervous system chemically, chiropractors, who work physically to decompress tension in the spine, which directly hits nerve signaling. We have EMDR, which is literally designed to rewire trauma loops. And maybe most importantly, polyvagal theory, which gives us the modern map to understand the vagus nerve itself.
And then kind of sitting in the middle of all that, connecting both worlds, you have these spiritual practices.
Like breathwork.
Exactly. Dedicated breathwork sessions that act like a self-administered reset button for your neurology.
And retreats.
Retreats, which work by just drastically removing all the external stress. And somatic practices, which are all about going inward and just feeling the subtle signals of your body.
And what's so fascinating is that every single one of those things, from a breath hold to a spinal adjustment to a drug, is aiming for the same thing.
Clear perception after a physiological discharge.
Right, and that discharge is just the biological result of a regulated nervous system.
It's biology. It's not faith. It's not magic. The nervous system is always the target.
Which leads to what I think is the most important and maybe the most relieving takeaway for you, for the listener. It just reframes this whole conversation about struggle or feeling like a failure or just being tired all the time.
And this 2,500-year-old truth, which is now backed up by neuroscience, is... it's stunningly simple.
You're not broken.
You are not broken. You are simply overloaded.
And calming the system is the protocol. The sources all agree that when you get regulated, the effects are immediate. Your thoughts get clearer.
Your body physically opens up, your posture changes.
Right, and that clarity returns. It's a whole system biological shift.
But I think it's important to understand how some of these specific practices work, because the mechanics can be, a little counterintuitive.
Let's start with movement then. Tai Chi. I think everyone's seen it. The movements are so fluid, but they're impossibly slow.
Right.
Why is that slowness, that deliberate, ancient slowness, so important?
Well, the slowness is the mechanism. It's what we call somatic downregulation. Tai Chi is this choreographed practice that pairs specific movements and weight shifts with very methodical breath pacing. And it focuses specifically on lengthening the exhalation.
Okay, why does lengthening the exhale matter so much? What's that doing?
It's a mechanical process. It's designed to recruit and train your vagal flexibility.
The vagus nerve being like the body's brake pedal.
Exactly. A long, slow exhale immediately lowers your heart rate. So by training this response with movement, you are chemically reducing stress hormones like cortisol. Biologically, it's doing the exact same thing as modern polyvagal exercises.
So it's not just some kind of graceful dance, it's a biomechanical intervention.
It is a moving meditation that's physically retraining your whole autonomic nervous system.
I love that. Okay, so let's shift from movement to stillness, to stretching. I have to say, I was really surprised by the connection the sources made between things like yoga, especially those really long held stretches, and this idea of somatic memory retrieval.
Yeah, this is where we get to bridge that ancient language of like energy blockage with modern myofascial science.
Myofascial, so that's the connective tissue.
That's the fascia, yeah. So these long sustained stretches, they actually compress these little things called mechanoreceptors that are embedded all through your connective tissue.
And what's the compression doing?
It creates a discharge.
A discharge of what?
Of electrical tension. The sources call it stored survival energy. Basically, it's trauma that got locked into the tissue from a past threat. So this ancient practice, it predates the term myofascial release by centuries.
But it's doing the same thing.
It's targeting the identical physiology. The idea that your tissue holds on to traumatic residue and that sustained pressure helps your body finally process and release it. Your body is metabolizing old, stuck survival signals.
That's a powerful idea.
Yeah.
That your body is physically holding the past until you put it in a position to let go. Because if we go from stretching to, complete stillness, how does meditation work as a neuro reset?
When we talk about mindfulness or open monitoring meditation, where you're just focusing on raw sensation, on interoception, the mechanism is doing two things at once. First, it actively deactivates what's called the default mode circuitry, or the DMN.
Can you break that down for us? We hear that term a lot. Is the DMN just the background noise in our heads?
It is the circuit responsible for that noise, yeah. Functionally, it's the network that handles self-referential thought.
So worrying.
Worrying, planning for the future, ruminating on the past. It's kind of the brain's rest state, but it uses a ton of energy.
Right.
And when you're overloaded, the DMN goes into hyperdrive, just constantly running simulations of what could go wrong. That's where that overloaded feeling comes from.
So meditation shuts down that exhausting chatter.
Exactly. And at the same time, the stillness stimulates your vagal afferents, so the sensory signals coming from your body to your brain. By focusing on these microsensations in real time, you help the insula, which is a key part of your brain, restore accurate interoception. The result is a massive drop in metabolic demand and, critically, the return of that clear perception.
It's a biological reset just from being still.
Facilitated by stillness, yeah.
Okay, this is where the comparison gets, truly stark. Bridging the most distant fields. Let's bring in Western pharmacology, the amygdala showdown.
Right.
How on earth can an SSRI and, say, a yogic breathing exercise be achieving the same thing? How are they both dampening the limbic system?
Because they share the identical mission to quiet the limbic system's survival alarms. In the West, SSRIs work by changing your brain chemistry. They increase extracellular serotonin.
Okay.
And that chemical change dampens your hyperreactivity, which then allows the higher order cognitive part of your brain, the prefrontal cortex, to take back control.
And the Eastern approach, pranayama, the breathwork.
It just uses biology's own levers. These techniques, like lengthening your breath or holding it, were designed to maximize what they called prana, the life force.
Which is really about oxygen and CO2.
Exactly. And this physical manipulation of your blood gases similarly dampens that limbic hyperreactivity, letting higher cognition take over. One uses a chemical key, the other uses a breath key, but the end result on your neural pathways is the same.
You quiet the alarm.
You quiet the alarm, and perception becomes clear.
That connection just makes the whole argument so compelling. It's not about where the tool came from. It's about getting that internal quiet. And we see a similar thing with ancient rhythmic traditions and modern trauma therapy.
Absolutely. The sources draw a direct line from ancient practices like drumming or chanting or repeating a mantra,
to modern techniques like EMDR.
to EMDR, exactly, with its eye movements or tapping.
So what is it about the rhythm, the bilateral stimulation? What's it actually doing in the brain?
Both of them stimulate what's called interhemispheric communication.
Communication between the two sides of the brain.
Right. See, when a traumatic memory gets stored, it's often fragmented, and it's locked in the limbic system in this really highly charged state. So that dual attention stimulus, the rhythm, the tapping, it's the mechanism that desensitizes that stored survival charge. By forcing both hemispheres to talk to each other while you recall the memory, you allow the amygdala to reclassify the event as non-threatening.
You're basically filing it away properly.
You're filing it away, yeah, and reducing its emotional charge. It's incredibly efficient.
And for someone who wants a really fast self-administered reboot, there's always intense breath work.
This is maybe the most forceful lever you can pull.
Right.
Techniques like conscious hyperventilation, followed by these long breath holds, you see it in ancient pranayama and modern holotropic sessions, they dramatically and intentionally alter the CO2 and oxygen in your body.
You mentioned catecholamines earlier.
Right.
For anyone who might not know, what are those,
Yeah.
and why is it important that they get released here?
Catecholamines are a group of hormones. The big ones are adrenaline and noradrenaline. They're your fight or flight hormones.
Okay.
When you do this intense breath work, the physiological shifts trigger this massive but controlled release of these catecholamines. The sources describe it as just flushing and metabolizing stored survival energy very, very quickly.
So it's a full system reboot.
It's a complete, though temporary, neural reboot, just using your body's own built-in chemistry set.
Which brings us back around to manual adjustments. Whether it's a chiropractor, an acupuncturist, a massage therapist, they all share that one goal.
Unblock neural traffic, yes.
Right.
The whole biological objective is to move your system out of chronic sympathetic tone.
That's the stress mode.
That's the constant stress, vigilance, survival mode, and move it into parasympathetic dominance.
And what does that shift actually feel like for a person?
Well, sympathetic is a high heart rate, digestive issues, tense muscles, and, that narrow threat-focused attention. Parasympathetic dominance, especially that higher level we call the ventral vagal state, that feels like safety. It feels like openness, social connection. It's the repair and digest mode. And this universal goal just validates the whole polyvagal framework. It confirms that shifting out of fight, flight, or freeze and into that social engagement state is the shared definition of health, no matter how you get there.
So what does this all mean for you listening? I think the core insight here is that these ancient concepts, whether you call it prana or chi, were just ways of describing the exact same physiology that modern science now calls neural ventral stimulation.
The search for wisdom, for peace, has always been the search for nervous system regulation. I mean, think about monastic withdrawal.
Right.
It's the ancient version of a sensory deprivation tank, or today's sensory deprivation spa. The mechanism is the same. Lower the external sensory load so the amygdala can downregulate.
When the system slows down, the internal alarms can finally surface and get metabolized.
Exactly.
And this just highlights the beautiful simplicity of it all and the agency you have. When the system is cooled, your biology just takes over and self-organizes.
Your thoughts change, your body opens up, clarity returns. This is awakening through biology, not through a miracle.
So if you feel like you're having mental or moral or even spiritual difficulty, anxiety, a short temper, exhaustion, the deepest reality, according to all this, is just simple nervous system overload.
Calm the wire, and the system finds its way home.
Which leaves us with a final provocative thought for you to consider. If the core problem really is nervous system overload, that feeling of being constantly hot or reactive, what simple 2,500-year-old protocol can you bring into your day today to start cooling your own system?
We're talking about basic silence,
Conscious stillness.
deliberate observation.
Something simple, something free, that's targeting the exact same nervous system that all these complex therapies and pharmaceuticals are designed to regulate. That's your deep dive.